Hey everyone, Allison here for the Scrap Happy Design team, and I'm going to show you how I created the two backgrounds on the two layouts that are in my blog post. And we're talking about cascading layouts this month, and about a year and a half ago I created these backgrounds, not knowing this was going to be a theme, obviously, but it totally works, and I hadn't shared them anywhere. I hadn't even edited the videos, so that's what we're doing right now. And I've got two pieces of white paper here for the reason that one is just plain white cardstock, and the other is a piece of Vicki Boutin's Foundations paper. So it's a thicker cardstock that has basically been treated to stand up to a lot of mixed media like water and whatnot. So it's basically got a gesso on it. And I wanted to create this sort of rainbow dripping effect on my papers. And the reason I'm doing them on the two different types is because I want to see how the two different types of paper react to all the water and the ink and sort of what happens. And then a bonus, I had two backgrounds to work with. This was inspired by a layout that Shamel Lane made. So I will link to that video. It was part of her Best of Both Worlds series. And like I said, this is a year and a half ago. So I think it was like August of 2021. Her kit that month was a rainbow of B-sides, I think she called it, which is where the rainbow came in. And anyways, so I have got some pretty bright oxide colors here because the photos that I'm going to scrapbook first are very bright. They're about my daughter's volleyball team, and they were dressing up for this particular tournament that they were in, and they were going as 80s aerobics instructors. So you can imagine lots of neon and very bright colors. So I tried to pick the brightest oxides I had. So oxides have this way of, when they are wet and you sort of mix them together, they can get a bit muddy. So that's why I didn't go from red to orange to yellow. I'm moving the rainbow around to give the inks a chance to dry sort of naturally before I add the next color. And so I'm just going back and forth from the regular white cardstock to the Foundations paper, adding my rainbow, and then I just drip it and then let it drip down the page. So process. Yeah. So you take your ink pads, and it's a very technical term, you smoosh it into your craft mat, and then you spray it with water. And that sort of activates it and creates, it makes it kind of like a paint, like a very liquidy paint. And then I have a brush there that is filled with water. It's a water brush. And I'm just sort of picking up that color and then squeezing the water from my brush out onto the page. And that lays down the drops of ink. And then I'm adding little splashes by just flicking it onto the page. So the difference between the two papers is that the regular white cardstock, the ink definitely is soaking into the paper more and is sort of wicking into the paper. So you get this slight bleeding effect around the big droplets. And then the drips are, the technical term, fuzzy. They're not crisp lines. Whereas on the Foundations paper, the droplets stay mostly round and the drips are more clean lines, I guess you could say, as the ink drips down the page. Also, the white paper, and I will show you this towards the end, the white paper has definitely bled through. I think this is where I show you. There's a little bit of warping, and so it bleeds through a little bit onto the back, whereas the Vicki Boutin paper doesn't. That purple there is just where I accidentally put it into some purple ink. So now I'm looking at the color I've laid down, and I realize I've got a lot of white on either side, and I kind of wanted a more edge to edge kind of design. So I've decided to add pink. And that is Kitsch Flamingo, which is my sort of brightest neonest pink that I can find. And I add it to the left-hand side on that one. And then I think on the Vicki Boutin one, I add it maybe on both sides. I can't remember. Yeah, I do. And that just helps fill it out. I didn't want to have so much white down the edges. I really wanted to have the design go from side to side. So there are my finished backgrounds, and I let them dry. For this particular layout, I'm using just the plain white cardstock. And I have a rainbow of B-sides that I'm going to be punching into circles. The pictures are from my daughter's volleyball tournament, so I wanted to embrace the circle motif. And I've just got 3 sizes of circle punch, and I just punch them from a whole bunch of colors. And then I'm going to glue these paper circles onto the background in the areas, like it, so it matches the ink colors. Like I'm not putting red over purple or anything like that. But I am trying to be as random as possible, which is actually kind of a tricky thing to do. Planned randomness is hard. And the easiest way for me to do it is to not think about it and just stick and go. So that's what I'm doing. I'm starting with the largest circles, moving down into the medium size, and then the smallest size. And I realize I've split up this video, but as you can see, I am going pretty fast. I'm not really thinking about where they're going. I'm just sticking. And I also know that a lot of those circles down in that lower third are going to get covered up by my photos, but that's okay. I'm not really worried about that. It's all about creating this texture in the background. So once that has dried, I can trim off the bits that I've had hanging over the edge, which is also another design choice because I didn't want to have a sort of frame going around this. I really wanted the design to look like it goes off the page, all this kind of stuff. So these are the photos, and as you can see, sorry about the glare there from my ring light, there are some very bright colors in there, and that blue background from the foam mats or whatever in the gym is quite bossy. But I decided to trim them down a little bit, and I'm going to put them side by side along the bottom there. And I'm just picking some of the B-sides that I've used to cut my circles out of to mat them with. And I'm going to mat the photos onto this bright pink. It really made the photos pop. I tried it on the yellow, but there wasn't enough contrast. So I'm going to use the yellow as a layer, but having them matted onto that pink it just made everything kind of come alive. So I've got 3 rectangular boxes in sort of progressively larger sizes. The pink one is perfectly sized to fit the 2 photos. And then the other 2 are just slightly larger. I didn't really measure. And sorry, I had to fix the camera there. The blue mat and the yellow mat, I'm not going to line up sort of square to the pictures because there's so much energy and movement in the photos and in my background that I wanted to have my papers reflect that by having them slightly on angles. My photos are matted at 90 degrees and everything like that to that pink mat, but then everything else is not. And so this is where I do my title, but full confession, I lost the end of the recording of putting this video together. So we will make the title, and then we're just going to jump to the finish layout shortly. And my title is a compilation of a whole bunch of different letter stickers, which also adds to the energy and the color and the vibrancy of everything that's going on. Doing things like that when you've got so much going on in your photos and on your background, just it kind of plays into that. It really accentuates it and helps your reader know that A, this is a lot of fun, and B, there's so much energy going on, and we're just trying to make that known. Just had to move my letters around to make them all fit. And the whole dig the good vibes is kind of a play on the word dig for volleyball. Yeah, there we go. So there's the finished layout. Thank you so much for joining me.